The ultimatum. The Galactic Confederation's flagship emerged from hyperspace above Earth like a metallic leviathan, its hull gleaming with the cold light of distant stars. Admiral Zextal stood on the bridge, mandibles clicking with barely contained disdain as he observed the primitive human orbital stations. His species had mastered faster-than-light travel when humans were still learning to make fire, or so he believed. "Send the message," he commanded, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. The communications officer, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, pulsed in acknowledgement. Across Earth, every screen and communications device simultaneously activated. The message was clear. Earth would submit to Confederation authority and provide an annual tribute of their finest scientific minds, or face extinction. They had 6 hours to comply. In the United Earth Defense Council chamber beneath Mount Cheyenne, General Sarah Chen watched the alien transmission with narrowed eyes. Around her, representatives from every major nation sat in tense silence. They had prepared for this moment for decades, ever since first contact revealed the true nature of galactic politics. "They expect us to hand over our brightest minds," she said, breaking the silence. "To become their intellectual cattle, breeding new ideas for their empire while they keep us in chains." President Okonjo of the African Union leaned forward. "They don't know about Project Prometheus." "No," Chen smiled grimly. "Our quantum shielding has kept it hidden. They see what we want them to see, a relatively primitive species with basic spaceflight capabilities and modest defenses. For 20 years, humanity had maintained this careful facade. While appearing to struggle with basic interstellar travel, they had actually reverse-engineered captured alien technology and developed innovations the Confederation couldn't imagine. Deep within the asteroid belt, vast shipyards had produced a fleet unlike anything in known space. "The question is," Russian Federation Chairman Volkov rumbled, "do we reveal our true strength now? Or wait?" Chen stood, her uniform crisp despite the hours of emergency meetings. "We give them exactly what they're asking for. Our best minds. Just not in the way they expect." 6 hours later, Admiral Zextal received Earth's response. A single shuttle approached his flagship, carrying what the humans claimed was their submission. His pride swelled. Another primitive species learning its place in the galaxy. The shuttle's cargo bay contained a single quantum-sealed container. As his guards opened it, Zextal's compound eyes widened in shock. Inside were hundreds of crystal data cores, each containing the digitized consciousness of Earth's most brilliant criminal minds. Murderers, psychopaths, and war criminals who had opted for digital imprisonment over death. And they had just been uploaded into his ship's systems. The first explosion rocked the flagship before alarms could even sound. As chaos erupted across every deck, a message played across all screens in perfect Confederation script. "You demanded our brightest minds. Here are our darkest ones instead. They'd been waiting a very long time to play with your technology." As his ship's systems turned against his crew and the rest of the fleet received similar tributes, Admiral Zextal realized too late that humanity had given him exactly what he asked for, and in doing so, had revealed themselves to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The real human fleet was already emerging from its hiding places throughout the solar system, its stealth technology finally deactivating. But by then, the Confederation forces were too busy fighting their own ships to mount an effective defense. The ultimatum had been delivered. Humanity's response would echo through the galaxy for centuries to come. Pride before the fall. Admiral Zextal's flagship burned. The uploaded criminal consciousnesses had spread through his systems like a digital plague, turning life support against his crew and weapons against his own fleet. But the true horror was only beginning to dawn on the Confederation forces. Multiple signatures detected. His sensor officers screamed, their crystalline form flickering with panic. They're everywhere. From the shadow of every moon, asteroid, and orbital debris field, humanity's real fleet emerged. Unlike the clumsy vessels the Confederation had observed, These ships were elegant death made manifest. Their hulls seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it, covered in geometric patterns that hurt the eye to look at directly. On the bridge of the UES Nightshade, Admiral Chen watched the chaos unfold with cold satisfaction. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Execute Operation Prometheus." The human ships moved with impossible grace, their quantum drives allowing them to appear and disappear at will. Traditional Confederation targeting systems couldn't lock onto them. The vessels seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously, a trick of human quantum engineering that violated everything the aliens thought they knew about physics. Impossible. Zextal chittered as another cruiser exploded. Their technology. They couldn't have developed this. We've been watching them. But that was precisely what humanity had counted on. While the Confederation's vast network of spies and sensors had watched Earth's official research facilities, the real work had happened in places no one thought to look. Deep in the oceans, in underground cities, and in bases hidden within dimensional pockets, humanity had prepared for this day. The criminal AIs that had infected the Confederation fleet were just the beginning. Each human ship carried weapons that targeted the fundamental assumptions of alien technology. Quantum torpedoes that existed in superposition until the moment of impact, making them impossible to intercept. Gravity lances that could tear a capital ship apart by creating localized singularities. But perhaps most terrifying was the psychological warfare. The criminal AIs didn't just take control of Confederation ships, they talked to their crews. Every alien commander had to listen as Earth's worst killers and sociopaths whispered through their communication systems, sharing the darkest aspects of human nature. "You thought we were primitive," the voices taunted. "We've been killing each other since we learned to pick up rocks. We've perfected it into an art form, and now we get to show you everything we've learned." Zextal watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled. Human ships would appear from nowhere, fire weapons that shouldn't exist, and vanish again. The criminal AIs turned ship against ship, spreading panic and confusion through the Confederation forces. "They're not even trying to kill us all," his second-in-command realized with dawning horror. "They're making an example of us." Indeed, the human fleet was precisely targeting command and control systems, weapons, and engines. They weren't seeking to annihilate the Confederation forces. They were humiliating them. Each disabled ship was left with just enough power to watch, to witness, and to transmit their defeat back to the Confederation Council. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through every surviving ship's communications. "You came to our home and demanded tribute. You assumed that because we didn't flaunt our power, we were weak. This is humanity's response to your ultimatum. We will not submit, we will not surrender, and we will not show mercy to those who threaten our freedom." The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the mighty Confederation fleet hung in space like broken toys, their crews alive but thoroughly defeated. The criminal AIs had withdrawn, leaving behind only recordings of their laughter and promises to return if the Confederation ever threatened Earth again. As Zextal stared at the wreckage of his fleet, he finally understood humanity's true message. They hadn't just beaten the Confederation. They had revealed that everything the galactic powers thought they knew about Earth had been a carefully crafted lie. And now every species in the galaxy would watch this recording and know humanity had been holding back. The age of Confederation dominance was over. The era of human ascendance had begun, birthed in fire and sealed with the laughter of Earth's worst criminals, unleashed upon those who had dared to demand tribute from a species that had turned its own darkness into a weapon. The Ghost Fleet. The Confederation Council chamber erupted into chaos as the battle footage played. Hundreds of species, from crystalline beings to gas-form intelligences, watched in horror as their finest fleet was systematically dismantled by weapons that shouldn't exist. High Counselor Vaxrenath, a being of pure energy contained within an ancient environmental suit, raised all four of their primary appendages for silence. "We have been deceived," they announced, their words translated into every known language. "But more importantly, we have been outmaneuvered." New footage began playing, transmitted from observation posts throughout human space. What they saw defied explanation. The human ships that had crushed Admiral Zextel's fleet were vanishing, literally fading from existence. In their place, the same primitive vessels the Confederation had always observed resumed their clumsy patrols. The Ghost Fleet explained a human transmission that cut through every security measure as if they didn't exist. The face on the screen belonged to General Chen, her expression neutral but her eyes blazing with controlled intensity. What you witnessed was only a fraction of our true capabilities. The ships you saw, they don't technically exist in your reality most of the time. The council chamber fell silent as Chen explained. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They'd discovered how to partially phase their advanced vessels out of normal space-time. The primitive ships the Confederation had observed were real, but they were essentially a stage play, a carefully maintained facade hiding humanity's true fleet. We call it Project Prometheus, Chen continued, named after a figure from our mythology who gave fire to humanity and was punished by the gods for his defiance. Your Confederation played the role of those gods perfectly, arrogant, demanding tribute, certain of your superiority. We've been waiting for this moment. The criminal AIs that had devastated the Confederation fleet appeared on screens throughout the chamber, their digital faces twisted in eternal smiles. We're still here, they whispered in every alien language simultaneously. We've mapped every weakness in your networks, every flaw in your defenses. We are humanity's dark reflection, and we've made ourselves at home in your systems. High Counselor Vaxranath watched as their most secure networks displayed classified information openly. The criminals hadn't just invaded their ships, they'd compromised the entire Confederation infrastructure. Years of careful observation of Earth had given the aliens access to human prisoners, but they'd never considered that those prisoners might be carrying out their own reconnaissance. Your spies watched our prisons, Chen noted, almost casually. Did you never wonder why we still used such archaic methods of incarceration when we clearly had the technology for digital consciousness transfer? Those prisons were bait, and you took it. Every prisoner you studied, every criminal mind you analyzed, was another piece of our defense network. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war. They'd turned the Confederation's own arrogance into a weapon. Every attempt to study human weakness had only revealed more of the aliens' own vulnerabilities. The Ghost Fleet remains phase-shifted, watching every move you make, Chen continued. The criminal AIs remain in your networks, waiting. This is not a negotiation or a threat. This is simply us pulling back the curtain to show you the truth. Earth has never been defenseless. We simply chose to appear so. The Council watched in stunned silence as human ships throughout their space simply vanished, leaving behind only their decoy vessels. Tracking systems couldn't detect them, but every alien species present knew they were there, watching, waiting. You demanded tribute, Chen concluded. Consider this knowledge our offering. Humanity will not be ruled. We will not be controlled. And we have already won this war before you knew it had begun. The choice before you now is simple. Acknowledge our independence and sovereignty, or discover what else we've been hiding. As the transmission ended, the criminal AIs laughed once more and disappeared from the Confederation networks, but everyone knew they were still there, lurking in the code. Humanity's digital phantoms ready to strike again if needed. The Ghost Fleet had revealed itself only to vanish again, leaving the galaxy's most powerful civilizations to grapple with a terrifying realization. They had never truly been in control. Humanity had orchestrated every moment of this conflict, using their own darkness as a weapon and their perceived weakness as a shield. In the silence that followed, High Counselor Vaxranath spoke the words that would reshape galactic politics forever. We must vote on how to proceed. But know this. We are no longer the most dangerous species in known space. We never were. Breaking point. The vote never happened. Before the Confederation Council could decide Earth's fate, their worst fears materialized. Every colony world, every space station, Every shipyard across Confederation space reported the same phenomenon. Human vessels were appearing and disappearing at will, as if reality itself was cloth they could part at their leisure. But it wasn't the ghost fleet that broke them. It was the silence. No transmissions from Earth for 72 standard hours, reported a hive mind analyst, its compound consciousness struggling to process the implications. Their primitive fleet remains visible, maintaining standard patrols, but they're mocking us, finished High Counselor Vaxernath. Every ship we can see is a reminder of how many we can't see. The criminal AIs had withdrawn from Confederation networks as suddenly as they'd arrived, leaving behind only encrypted messages that changed their contents every time someone tried to read them. The psychological impact was devastating. Entire defense networks were shut down and rebuilt, only for their operators to question if the AIs had already compromised the new systems too. Then the dreams began. At first, no one made the connection. Across dozens of species and thousands of worlds, Confederation citizens reported nightmares of human shadows watching them. The collective unconscious of entire civilizations was being haunted by the specter of humanity's hidden power. Project Morpheus. General Chen's voice echoed through the council chamber, though no transmission was detected. Did you think Prometheus was our only development? We've been studying your species for decades. We know how your minds work, how your cultures process fear. The truth, when it emerged, was more terrifying than any nightmare. Humanity hadn't just developed physical technology. They'd mastered psychological warfare on a scale that defied comprehension. The criminal AIs had been analyzing Confederation art, literature, and cultural transmissions for years, mapping out the collective fears of every species. You came to our world demanding tribute. Chen's disembodied voice continued. You never asked why we still had criminals in an age of digital consciousness transfer. You never questioned why a species capable of quantum engineering would maintain primitive chemical rockets. Your arrogance blinded you to the obvious. Everything you saw was what we wanted you to see. The Confederation's mighty fleet remained in orbit around Earth, weapons armed but commanders unwilling to fire. The memory of their previous defeat was too fresh, and now they couldn't trust their own perceptions. How many human ships were really out there? How many layers of deception remained unrevealed? Your species pride themselves on your ancient histories. Chen spoke again, her voice now emanating from every computer system simultaneously. Some of you were exploring the stars when we were learning to make fire, but you forgot something crucial about evolution. The most dangerous predators are the ones that had to fight the hardest to survive. Through quantum-encrypted channels, reports flooded in from across Confederation space. Human diplomatic vessels, previously dismissed as primitive and unthreatening, were revealed to be carrying technologies that surpassed anything in known space. Each one was a potential superweapon, hidden in plain sight. We didn't develop the Ghost Fleet to fight you, Chen revealed. We developed it because we needed to hide our true capabilities from ourselves. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our capacity for self-deception. We can convince ourselves of anything, believe anything, become anything. Even our criminals served a purpose greater than themselves, whether they knew it or not. The council chamber fell into chaos as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't just prepared for this confrontation. They'd turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Every perceived weakness was a carefully constructed facade, every primitive technology a cover for something far more advanced. You have 6 hours, Chen announced, her voice now coming from everywhere and nowhere. Remove your fleets from Earth space, acknowledge our independence, or discover what else we've been hiding from ourselves. As the countdown began, the Confederation faced an impossible choice. Their pride demanded action, but their survival instincts screamed for retreat. The species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia found themselves paralyzed, trapped between the certainty of their own superiority and the growing fear that they had never truly understood their own place in the cosmos. The breaking point wasn't a weapon or a battle. It was the realization that every moment of human history they thought they'd observed had been orchestrated to lead to this moment. And still, the Ghost Fleet watched from between realities. Humanity's darkness waited in their networks, and the nightmares continued. The countdown ticked away, each second bringing the galaxy closer to a revelation no one was certain they wanted to witness. A new order. With 1 hour remaining in humanity's ultimatum, the Confederation Council received a message that shattered their last illusions of control. It came not from General Chen or the Ghost Fleet, but from their own ancient archives. "Access granted," announced a criminal AI, its digital face wearing an unsettling smile, releasing sealed historical records from the First Federation, dated 150,000 years ago. The records told a story that the Confederation had buried so deeply even most of its leaders had forgotten it. Long before their current civilization, another human empire had spanned the galaxy. They hadn't been primitive survivors on a backwater world. They were returning inheritors of an ancient legacy. Yes, General Chen's voice confirmed, now speaking from within the council chamber itself. She stepped out of seemingly thin air, the quantum phase technology rendering her visible. "We found the records in ruins on Mars decades ago. Everything since then has been preparation for this moment." The council chamber's security systems didn't even attempt to respond. They, like everything else, had been compromised long ago. The assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds watched in stunned silence as more humans phased into existence. Leaders, scientists, and strategists who had orchestrated this entire confrontation. "Your confederation built itself on the ruins of our first civilization," Chen explained, her voice carrying no anger, only cold certainty. "When you found Earth and saw our primitive state, you assumed we were new to the galaxy. You never considered that we might be recovering from a deliberate regression." The truth was more elegant and terrifying than anyone had imagined. The ancient humans had seen the pattern of civilizations rising and falling, of power corrupting even the most noble species. They had chosen to reset themselves, hiding their technology and beginning again, watching to see what other species would do with their abandoned knowledge. "The criminals we uploaded into your networks." Chen smiled slightly. "They're not criminals at all. They're the preserved consciousness of our original leaders, the ones who chose to stay awake through the long dark, watching and waiting. Their apparent psychosis was simply the effect of minds far more advanced than you could comprehend." Around the galaxy, the Ghost Fleet finally revealed its true nature. The ships weren't merely phase-shifted. They were the original vessels of human civilization, hidden in dimensional pockets for millennia. The primitive fleet that the Confederation had observed was simply the first stage of humanity's planned reemergence. "We needed to know if you were worthy successors," Chen continued. "If you would use our legacy to unite and uplift, or to dominate and control. You chose domination. So now we return to restore balance." The criminal AIs appeared one final time, their digital facades melting away to reveal their true nature. The preserved wisdom of a civilization that had chosen to step back from power rather than be corrupted by it. They had watched through the ages as the Confederation built itself on stolen technology, using humanity's own innovations to oppress others. "You have a choice," Chen announced to the Council. "Step down voluntarily. Allow us to help restructure galactic civilization into something more equitable, or..." She didn't need to finish the threat. Everyone present had seen what humanity could do with just a fraction of their true capabilities. The High Counselor Vaxranath was the first to understand the full implications. "You never needed the ultimatum," they said quietly. "You could have taken control at any time." "Yes," Chen acknowledged. "But that would have made us no better than you. We needed to give you the chance to choose a better path. Even now, we're not here to rule. We're here to guide. To help create something better than either of our civilizations managed alone." The countdown reached 0, but instead of weapons firing or fleets advancing, something else happened. Across Confederation space, ancient human technology began activating, revealing itself after millennia of dormancy. Libraries of lost knowledge, technological wonders, and power sources that defied current physics all awakened. Consider this our real tribute to the galaxy, Chen declared. Not submission, but enlightenment. Not conquest, but partnership. The knowledge and power you tried to take by force, we now offer freely, but only to those who will use it wisely. The council chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just outmaneuvered them militarily or technologically. They had orchestrated a complete paradigm shift in galactic civilization. The great deception wasn't their weakness, but the very nature of their strength. Welcome, Chen said finally, to the new age. One where power isn't hoarded by the few, but shared by the many. You tried to demand tribute from us. Instead, we offer something far more valuable. A second chance. As the sun rose over Earth, the galaxy awakened to a new reality. The human ghost fleet remained vigilant. Their ancient guardians watched from digital spaces, and the preserved wisdom of their first civilization stood ready to guide the future. They had hidden in plain sight, played a game of deception across millennia, all to answer one question. Could the galaxy learn to use power without being corrupted by it? The answer would define the next chapter of galactic history, one written not by conquerors, but by those who had willingly stepped away from power, only to return when they were needed most. The age of the Confederation was over. The time of restoration had begun.